And thanks again for being flexible. And I'm glad everybody made it in the meeting today. Excuse me. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I'll start with introductions. So I'm Anna Brawley, the president of Turnagain Community Council. We also have a few of our board members on. We have Kathy Gleason, the vice president, Carolyn Hall, our at-large member, and then Jackie Armstrong, who is joining on the phone. And then the other members, Stephanie Quinn Davidson and Kathleen Bilowski are out of town today. So next I'll go ahead and, oh, and I guess just again, I'll remind folks as far as Zoom. I know we've been using Zoom for a while now, but just a reminder, please update your Zoom name with your first and last name. Include whether you're a member or a guest. If this is your first meeting, but you live or own property or have a business in this area, you would be considered a member who can vote. And then also just a reminder to keep on mute if you're not speaking. And just to, we have a busy agenda as usual, so please keep your comments or questions brief. And Kathy, you have your hand raised? Oh, sorry, Kathy, you're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. I just posted the TCC membership from information from our bylaws in the chat. So you guys can all look it over to see if you think you qualify, but be sure and ask questions if you have any.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share screen just to look at tonight's agenda because we will be looking for a motion to approve the agenda for tonight and just see if there's any additions or any other comments. So looking for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second. This is Jackie.
Okay, so is Kathy moving the agenda, Jackie seconding. Any objection to approving the agenda? Okay, hearing none, the agenda is approved. Next, we'll move on to approving the prior TCC meeting minutes. So we actually have two sets of minutes to approve that were posted on our website. The first is our regular meeting on March 3rd, and then we had a special meeting to discuss the Turnagain land sale, which we'll talk about briefly later on Monday, March 7th. So I guess I'll entertain a motion either to approve them all together or to approve them one at a time.
And I'd recommend that we do them individually, please.
Okay. And just a reminder also, if in the course of approval, if we see small things like typos or missing words or things that don't change the intent, then the board does reserve the right to make those changes, but please let us know if you see any major issues on the minutes. So I'll look for a motion first to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 3rd.
I'll move to approve those meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll go with Dan, since this is your first second, and then I'll go with Jackie move and Dan second. Any objection to approval? Okay. Cool. Let me just get the waiting room. Okay, so those minutes are approved. And then next I'll look for a motion to approve the special meeting minutes from March 7th.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Approved by, or move to approve by Kathy, second by Jackie. And any objection or changes to those minutes? Okay, not seeing any, then we'll consider those approved as well. Okay, so then next we have announcements. And so I know there's a couple of guests here today, a couple are on the agenda, but just I'll see if there's any announcements, and I'll start with a couple from our side. One is a reminder that the new Transportation Improvement Project, or TIP list, is out. That's it's a 3-year period for 2023 to 2026. And The comment period is open through May 5th, so just a reminder there. Turnitin did submit some priority projects based on our capital improvement list or CIP list. So the board is going to go in and basically, submit the same comments in support of those. But we also encourage you to look at that as well. And then another reminder, if you're following the state redistricting process, there's public hearings that are happening. Well, they happened today. There's one tomorrow and one on Saturday. So if you're interested, you can check that out. I believe they're at the Anchorage LIO, Legislative Information Office. And Turnitin's not participating in that directly, but we did submit comments on the House districts back in November. And then another reminder, just the next regular assembly meeting is on Tuesday, April 12th. And then there I'll see, because we actually have two guests. So maybe I'll have you guys say a brief introduction under announcements. So we have somebody from JBear and somebody from Chugach Electric. So the person from JBear, if you'd like to say hello.
Hey everybody, my name is Lexi Smith. I'm in public affairs over at JBear, and I also actually do live in the Turnitin community. But I just wanted to pop in, say hi to everybody. I will put my contact information in the chat, but we are really just trying to get out into the community, see if anyone has any questions, and make ourselves available to you. One big announcement that we do have is that the Arctic Thunder open house is back on this year in person at the end of July, the 30th and 31st. So we are going to have that coming up soon, and local businesses are going to be able to bid as normal for vendor booths and those sorts of things. And I can get that information to anyone who needs it. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for attending and for reaching out to ask how to attend. So next we have Rachel Morse from Chugach Electric.
Hi, thanks. My name is Rachel Morse. I'm on the board of directors for Chugach Electric. I am the current chair, and I want to make sure you know that our annual meeting is coming up and the elections for the Chugach Electric board are also coming up. And so you should have received, I know it'll look backwards in the Zoom, but you should have received a mailer that has information on how you can do your ballots. If you want a paper ballot, you have to request that, but all of that information is on our website. It's also in your postcard. We are combining our membership appreciation day and our annual meeting so that you can come and experience membership appreciation, and then that rolls right into the annual meeting. So we'll do the bucket rides and the tours of the plants and the things that we do as membership appreciation, and then we will also have our in-person annual meeting. The election, the vote, the annual meeting is May 20th. And so if you want to invite your candidates who are running for the board to your May meeting, that's also a good way to get to know candidates. If you do that, you will see me. I am running for re-election, but I'm not on your agenda tonight. So I will also tell you that on the Chugach website, there are places where you can go and see candidate statements. We're going to be doing a candidate forum that's going to be recorded, and how to access that will be on our website as well. So there are plenty of opportunities for you to get out and find out who's running and what their information is all about. And I hope you stay active and engaged, because you guys as members own this utility. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Rachel, looks like you have a question from Kathy.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for attending our meeting. And I just wanted to point out that I did, at the last minute today, get some announcements together and meeting notices. And so, Anna, if you haven't already, I assume you will post them on our website. And included in that is more detailed information that Rachel just provided with regard to the forum, the Chugach Board Forum, and then also the Appreciation Day and annual meeting event. So there's information within that. If you didn't get your flyer, or you haven't looked at it yet, take a look at the announcements. I won't go over anything in it today, but there's lots of stuff going on. So please check that out on our website. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks, Kathy, for producing those announcements. So I put in the chat as well. Please, anybody feel free to post information, especially if you're presenting, you can leave your contact information. And then we try as much as possible to post documents on the website. So, and thanks again, Kathy, for the announcements. We'll get those up after today. So next we have our executive board report, and I'll just note that we're a little behind in terms of timing on the agenda, but I know a few of our elected officials can't make it, and so we'll pick up some time there. So in terms of our board report, some of our updates will just be on later on the agenda as updates, but one is just to remind folks that our meetings will now start at 6:30 p.m., starting with tonight's meeting. And ideally that will be when we don't have Zoom problems and can actually have everybody in the same room at 6:30. But just a reminder, we'll do that going forward. And we may change that again in the future, but we're trying to accommodate folks who either have to get up really early for their jobs or other reasons, and also for parents who it's helpful to have that little more time in your evening. So appreciate folks who were accommodating there. And then next is the Federation of Community Councils delegate report. So Kathy and I attended the meeting on March 16th. They meet the third Wednesday of the month. And to be honest, I'm blanking on what they talked about because it's been a while, but essentially I know there was updates about the election that has already closed now, but how to sign up for ballot tracks. There was information about transportation projects. And Kathy, I don't know if there was anything urgent. Oh, I guess, there's one that Kathy can maybe touch on, which is the FCC is really interested in improving outreach and training for officers who run these meetings, but also for members, just to make sure people know what councils are, helping folks learn Zoom, learn Robert's rules, that kind of thing. So that's something that that Kathy on our council is participating in. And
Yeah,
Kathy,
I can just jump in and say, so there were about 4 or 5 of us on the training committee, and we met a couple times, and we'll be presenting at the upcoming FCC meeting on whatever date that is. I'd have to look, third Wednesday of this month, at some of our suggestions. And so we're of course still open to anything that you as a community council member or as an officer or just would love to know more about how we do things and where we get our information and what kinds of things you would like to see us focus on with regard to getting the word out to people and informing them. We're thinking about little videos, and we're having maybe some in-person board training and delegate training. So there's a few options, and we're looking forward to continue that effort at the delegate level. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So from there, I think the rest of our updates are really just embedded in the agenda. So we'll move now to a brief presentation. So we have from the Municipality Office of Equal Opportunity, we have Megan Moffett. So I'll kick it off. And if you'd like to share your screen, please feel free.
Great, thank you so much. That was going to be my first question. Let's see, can you see AERC logo right now? Okay, fabulous. Hi, everybody. My name is Megan. I'm an investigator with the Anchorage Equal Rights Commission. First off, thank you very much for having me as a guest today. I'm honored to be starting, and I'll try to keep it very brief. Basically, we're a small office within the municipality, and we're reaching out to community councils to remind people that we're here if they ever need us as a resource. We're a municipal law enforcement agency located in City Hall. That's where I'm sitting right now. And we impartially investigate discrimination complaints with the goal of preventing and eliminating discrimination in our community. So our jurisdiction and our process are determined by Title V of the Anchorage Municipal Code, but we also have a work-share agreement with the National EEOC to enforce federal anti-discrimination law as well. And essentially, we want to be available as a resource to anyone in the community who feels they're experiencing discrimination or wants to learn more about anti-discrimination law. And as a very brief explanation, to discriminate against someone means to treat that person differently or less favorably based on an aspect of their identity. And in Anchorage, it's illegal to discriminate against someone based on their race, color, religion, national origin, sex, pregnancy, age, sexual orientation, gender identity, physical or mental disability, marital status, or parenthood. And it is also illegal to retaliate against someone if they reported alleged discrimination. Probably the item that we get the most questions on is disability. And broadly speaking, disability most frequently refers to if someone is unable to participate in a regular life activity for an extended period of time. So that life activity can include walking, breathing, concentrating, eating. It's a much broader category than many people might expect. And the AERC has jurisdiction to enforce anti-discrimination law in employment, housing, financial services, public services, schools, or public accommodations. So public services usually refers to practices within the muni. And then public accommodations refers most typically to places that are open to the general public that anybody could walk into during business hours and expect service, like a restaurant or a convenience store. And then just very briefly, when should someone call the AERC? If someone ever wants to discuss any situation or concern, please give us a call. We're free and confidential. And if it's within our jurisdiction, we'll do our best to draft a complaint for that person and walk them through our process. And if the issue is not within our jurisdiction, we'll do our best to provide a relevant referral. So some common questions are, do you feel you were treated differently than someone else in a similar situation? Do you feel like your protected class, that aspect of your identity, was a motivating factor in that issue that you're experiencing? Do you feel like a decision has affected you differently than someone else due to your identity? Or do you feel you were treated differently after you expressed a concern? So if any of those questions apply to your situation, anyone can reach us by walking into our office in City Hall. We're on the first floor, by email, phone. We also have an intake form on our website if people are more comfortable with that. And then beyond our complaint process, we also provide specialized anti-discrimination law trainings to community groups who are interested. And that's the end of my spiel. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Yeah, thanks everyone. And just a reminder, we try to use the raise hand function just to keep track. So it looks like Kathy has a question.
Sorry. I don't know why I'm asking this, but so maybe you can clarify. You know, there's been efforts maybe in certain circles, realms, governmental bodies to limit reference to, let's say, gay or lesbian people with children, certain in schools and certain settings. And I just wondered if, you know, if there's a kind of an age limit on what your organization and how you address things, if that would not be part of your purview, or if that is actually discrimination per law as well. If you, you know, I don't know how else to word it. Maybe I'll let you just take it from there and see if you understand kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I understand the question, but I'll do my best. So in terms of age limit, if you're talking about like the age limit of the complainant, if someone, we do have had guardians file on behalf of their children. So someone needs to be over 18 to file with our office. But if the person experiencing discrimination is under that age, they can have a guardian file on their behalf. And then in terms of age limit, as like in terms of the relevant, how long ago this incident happened, very broadly speaking, our office has jurisdiction 6 months from the most recent date of discrimination. So if something occurred 5 years ago, there's strong odds our office can't do anything about that, but it's still worth calling just to confirm, because there are more details to that than I should get into right now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, to some degree it does. Thank you.
Great. And if there's a specific instance on your mind, people are always welcome to call our office.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Do
No,
you,
go ahead.
yeah. Can you go into, I was thinking about the age limit question that was just asked, and do you enforce it against, like, I want to clarify, do you have jurisdiction over what happens in schools, and particularly with like children discriminating against each other, or is it just staff?
So when someone files a complaint, they're filing against an organization, they're not filing against an individual. So if something occurs in a school and it's suspected to be discrimination, we would encourage you to call our office, and depending on the details, we can determine if it's within our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, any other questions for Megan? I don't see any. So Megan, if you could just provide your email address in the chat or whatever information. And then if you send me a copy of that presentation, I can upload it to our website after the meeting. And just a reminder to folks, we often get outreach, like Megan had reached out to the council to say, hey, could I give a presentation? So that's often where we get our information, but we also are happy to reach out to folks and ask for presentations. So if there's something that you as a member would like to hear about, a question you have, what's up with traffic calming, things like anything like that, then please let us know, and then the board can work it into a future agenda. So we're happy to do that. We want to provide information. Okay. Well, next we will move on to our regular reports. So we have our legislative report, assembly, mayors, school board, and airport. And then I'll say that a couple of folks, I know the House is currently in session, so Representative Clayman let me know that he won't be able to attend. So I'm assuming Representative Drummond is in the same situation. We do have Senator Gray Jackson, and we have staff from Senator Costello's office. And then I'll also say I heard from Margot Bellamy on the school board that they are busy deliberating on the superintendent. So we also won't have that tonight. So she provided a written report that will get out to everybody. So with that, I will turn it over to Senator Gray Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to see everybody. And I'm just going to give an update first on my bills that are moving. Senate Bill number 7, the state trooper policies requirement to have public access, have them on the website. It was heard and it was passed by the Senate, but it was heard in House State Affairs and it moved out on March 31st. And the next committee hearing is House Judicial. And I think it's going to be scheduled for a hearing sometime next week. And then it'll go to the House for a vote. And I anticipate that bill passing this session. And then Senate Bill 80, mental health in schools. It passed the Senate on Monday by a vote of 13-1. And there were 5 senators absent. I was really happy though that it passed by that margin. And now it is in the House Finance Committee, and after that, it'll go to the House for a vote. And I'm pretty sure that bill is going to pass this session. And then Senate Bill 157, Health and Personal Safety Education, also known as requiring sex education in schools. It's scheduled for a hearing in Senate Education tomorrow, April 8th. And then lastly, Senate Bill 222, which extends the Physical Therapy and Occupational Therapy Board. It was heard in Senate State Affairs on March 23rd, and it's going to be voted on by the Senate tomorrow on the floor. Yeah. Okay. Department of Health and Social Services, the split, as everybody probably knows by now, the split has taken effect, and it will take effect formally on July 1st. The cost to implement the split is estimated to be around $2 million. There are 2 departments, Department of Family and Community Services. That department will contain Division of Juvenile Justice, Office of Children's Services, Alaska Pioneer Homes, and Alaska Psychiatric Institute. And then Department of Health would contain Division of Public Health, Division of Behavioral Health, Division of Healthcare Services, and then Division of Senior and Disability Services. And April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I just want to take a moment to ask all Alaskans to come together and stand against sexual assault in our homes and our communities, and commit to keeping our citizens safe and increase, support to victims and survivors of sexual assault. Sexual Assault Awareness Month, it was officially recognized for the first time in 2001. And Governor Dunleavy submitted legislation, Senate Bill 241 and H Bill 414, which appropriates the initial funding anticipated to be received by the state from the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. I'm sorry. And some of the highlights follows: $560.2 million in additional federal funds for surface transportation, rural water and wastewater programs, veteran services, and cybersecurity grants. $37.4 million for federal weatherization programs in the Alaska Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, $28 million for investments in modernizing the electric grid, developing clean hydrogen, and a research demonstration facility for Alaska's substantial reserves of critical and rare earth minerals, $5 million to stand up the State of Alaska Infrastructure Office to coordinate and consolidate the efforts in dealing with the infrastructure money, and that office is going to be within the office of the governor. 4 million to construct housing for teachers and public safety personnel in rural communities that aren't connected to the road system. And then 2.5 million to the Alaska Federation of Natives to continue the Navigator program, which is a joint effort with the state on securing all funding available in infrastructure legislation. And as mentioned, the House is actually on the floor right now. They've been on the floor for a couple of days dealing with the budget. When I left the Capitol about 5 o'clock, they were on, I think, amendment number 84. And the Senate Finance Committee is now holding public hearings on the budget. And they had tomorrow at 1 o'clock, they'll be taking testimony from Anchorage. And with that said, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for the senator? Oh, go ahead,
Uh,
Carson.
Yeah, very briefly, can you tell us the committees that you mentioned rare earth metals? This is something I'm very interested in because China kind of has the market cornered there. Can you tell us a little bit about the committees that would be handling development and setting the regulatory environment?
I'm not sure that I understand the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. What agencies / committees are relevant to shaping policy towards developing rare earth minerals and licensing everything?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look because I'm familiar with the committees that I'm on and other committees, but I'm not sure exactly what committees deal with that. I can't answer
Okay.
that question right now, but I'm more than happy to get an answer for you.
Okay, I'll just send you my email then. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any
Okay.
other questions before I go to my next meeting? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's an honor to give my report every month and enjoy the rest of the meeting. Take care. Bye.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then also online, we have Katie McCall from Senator Costello's office. And I don't know if you have an answer for the mining and resource question.
Thanks. I don't think I do. I just heard the conversations here and there, but as far as like any specific committee or a specific bill, nothing that I know of off the top of my head. But I can definitely look into that and see if I can get some more info. But other than that, I can give a few updates for you guys. Senator Costello's got other obligations tonight, but we're very busy here in Juneau. Like Senator Gray Jackson mentioned, the House is on the floor and they've been on the floor for many, many hours this week debating the budget. And a few notable things that are in the budget currently. So the House proposed an energy relief check in addition to a permanent fund dividend check. I think that's maybe created a little confusion. We've gotten some emails like, do we apply for an energy rebate? It really is just another check, and I've heard that it'll even be just one payout. So it won't even be those two separate amounts. It'll just look like a larger dividend. At least that's my understanding. And things are still changing as they're debating the budget. So that's something to look out for. A big thing that our office is working on right now that might be of interest to people is a bill, Senate Bill 234, which is setting up an Office of Broadband in the state. As you might know, we got a lot of money coming into the state from the federal infrastructure bill. And one of the things we're required to do as a state is set up an Office of Broadband. So that is a bill. It's actually, excuse me, sponsored by the Senate Labor and Commerce Committee, which Senator Costello chairs. So our office is really busy dealing with that. We've got to get that office set up relatively soon because there's, I think, about $2 billion coming to the state to improve our broadband infrastructure. So that's a big project, taking up a good amount of our time. Other than that, like I said, there's a lot going on. If you have any specific questions, we are always happy to answer it, look into things, give you some more details. If you'd like to set up a meeting with Senator Costello, you are more than welcome to call our office, 269-0117. You can also send her an email at senator.mia.costello@akleg.gov. And I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks, Katie. And if you could put the contact info in the chat too, I forgot to ask the senator to do that. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any, but yeah, just please, general reminder, and I know the House folks would say this as well, that they're always welcome to talk to constituents, answer questions, track down information. So please feel free to reach out because the elected officials and their staff are very helpful. So I think that's all we have then. Okay, so thanks, Katie. So moving on, we have assembly report, and I know that both of our assembly members are not available tonight, but we have
Excuse me, Anna.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Is there anybody else from, I thought I saw, but maybe I'm not. I thought I saw maybe another aide, but I may have been not looking right. Pardon me. Okay. never
Oh,
mind.
that's okay. Okay, yeah, I think we have anyway 2 assembly aides from Kevin Perez Verdia and Austin Quinn Davidson. So I don't know, Alex or Geneva, I don't know if who wants to go first.
Geneva, you're welcome to go first if you like.
I know you guys don't have a presentation per se, but if there's anything you'd like to share, or if anybody has questions. Oh, Geneva says she's having audio visual issues.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. Anna. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Kelly. I'm presenting for Assemblymember Perez Verdia, who is traveling this evening. I'm going to speak briefly about 4 issues: the municipal elections, reapportionment, the mass care exit at Sullivan Arena, and the long-term housing plan, and the ARPA investment review series. At the end, I'll take any questions that you may have for Cameron to answer at a later time. So on the election, my report is pretty basic, and you already know it. The results are still coming in. I'll drop a link into the chat at the end with some other links that contains the latest information, the latest results. On reapportionment, a new election district map was approved. I'll put that link in the chat also. The original proposal took West High School and Forest Park out of the district, but Cameron worked with Assemblymember Quinn Davidson and got those places put back in. On the mass care and long-term housing plan, the latest update can be found on the municipal site at the link that I'll put in the chat. The update includes the following. First, the city purchased the Sockeye Inn and Catholic Social Services will run it. Second, the permanent supportive housing that was originally intended for the Barrett Inn on Spinard was determined not to be cost effective. So the city has identified a new location, but Cameron hasn't been told where it is yet. Third, and finally, the Assembly has put forth money for the design of a single adult navigation site on Tudor and Elmore. Finally, regarding the American Recovery Plan Act funds, as many of you know, over the past 2 years, the Assembly has distributed $214 million in federal relief funds through the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. That's to help businesses, organizations, and individuals survive the pandemic. The Assembly has been meeting with organizations that received this money to learn what's been achieved, so they can try to make informed decisions about how to spend the next round of funding. That concludes my summary report, and I'm happy to take any questions that any of you may have for Cameron.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Kathy, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alexander, for reporting for us. You know, I've been seeing in the news where some of these CARES Acts have been fraudulently, distributed to inappropriate entities that had no business getting that funding. Of course, there was so much money and everybody wanted to get out so quickly because there was so much need. What steps are being taken to ensure there's minimal, if no, fraud with regard to disbursement of some of this funding? Thanks.
Got it, and we'll get back to you, Kathy.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Alex or just information to pass along? Okay, and thanks, Geneva. I see in the chat you said everything was covered, but please contact her if you have questions for Austin. So, so I think with that, just a reminder again, please, contact your assembly members if you have questions, comments, anything that you'd like to share. And then I know assembly aides are always hard at work helping out. So, okay. So let's move on to our next report. So I don't believe we have anybody from the mayor's office tonight. And I know, well, I know Portia Erickson was out of office with a baby, so she may be back by now. But I know also we have just kind of periodic attendance there. So the next one is school board report, which again, Margot was not available this evening. So I put her report that she shared in writing in the chat. So please feel free to download that. We'll put it on the website. And they are in the middle of deliberating on the new superintendent. So I expect we'll see some news, relatively soon on that. And then next we'll move on to airport reports. So I know we have Terry and Megan. So go ahead.
Hi, I am Megan Peters. I am the communications coordinator for the Ted Stevens Anchorage International Airport. I'm going to briefly go through the airport update that was sent out, and I got a couple other things that are also coming up in May that I just want to give people a heads up on. First and foremost, I think the most visible thing going on at the Anchorage International Airport is construction going on. The loop road in front of the terminal where people get dropped off and picked up. They're doing a really big renovation on that. They are currently blocking off the lower ramp. They are completely remilling and repaving down there. They're also doing some upgrades to the sidewalks. They're looking at bringing up the ADA compliance and also FAA standards for that. So there's a lot of detours happening, and as long as people are following the signs, they should be okay. Also, using the cell phone lot will be very helpful for people to not clog that up and then just only going to pick up somebody when they need to be picked up. There is infrastructure happening also on the air side at the airport. That won't necessarily impact what's happening on the public side, but there's just a lot of moving and shaking happening, and they're doing the best they can to get the things on the public side taken care of before Memorial Day weekend. To a large extent, there will still be things happening potentially up to September, but it won't be as big as what's happening before Memorial Day weekend. We are starting to welcome back direct international flights coming up in May. International flights will be between Frankfurt and Anchorage, and then also between Vancouver and Anchorage. The air carriers that we have for going to Frankfurt is going to be Condor and Eurowings Discover. Flair and Air Canada are the ones going back and forth from Vancouver. The Lake Hood Sea Base, it is a changing season. We are watching the situation with the ice on the lake, depending on sun exposure and also temperatures. We just never know when that ice is going to go out. Typically it goes out in early May, but it has gone out as early as mid-April. So we are watching that. We are recruiting at the airport. There's a variety of positions available at joinanc.com. People can navigate to where the state is advertising for those positions. There's also links to other companies that are trying to hire around the airport. When our partners at the airport are fully staffed, it just makes everything run smoother at the airport. So any job is a good job at the airport. We do not have COVID testing in the airport anymore. That was discontinued a little while back. So anybody that is traveling to a destination that does have COVID precautions and restrictions or mandates in place, you need to make sure to have any documentation that those locations require before you board. Boarding decisions are made by airlines and not the actual airport. But we do encourage people to go check before they fly, so it limits frustration when they do get to our airport. For notices, Gov Delivery, anything we send out for public notice, we also just do a Gov Delivery just to let people know that something's there. We also send out press releases that way, or if we have some kind of announcement that just needs to go out, we send it out through Gov Delivery. We have on our website an area for people to do questions, concerns, comments, anything you want to tell us, it's there. It doesn't matter what the topic, anybody can go in and put in a suggestion, a complaint. I'm the monthly contact now for community councils. I still consider myself pretty new, even though it's been about 6 months at the airport. It's a huge learning curve. I'm surrounded by a great team, but I'm not just running on my own yet. So bear with me, please. The things in May that I think are important to point out is we do have our cleanup day coming back May 6th. We have airport employees and family and our tenant employees and their families. They come out, they help clean up around the airport. We try and do a good job of keeping it clean in the wintertime, but as snow melts, we do see that there is litter and other stuff under that snow. Coming up in early May is also the start of the rejuvenation of the gravel strip for Lake Hood, runway 1432. Usually they do work annually on this airstrip when they're getting ready for the season. This year it's a little bit more in depth because it's getting to be about the life of that surface. So they're digging down a little bit deeper, not much, but a little bit deeper than they normally do. Construction will be about 2 weeks, and then there'll be about a week where they let that settle. So it'll be a little bit quieter for that time frame, which you'll probably like. The other thing that I can think of that's not on my annual report or my monthly report, excuse me, is April 18 is when the mask mandate federally is extended to. We do not know yet whether or not it's going to be extended. So as long as that mask mandate federally is in effect, we do ask people to abide by it. Hopefully we'll know soon if that's going to continue or not. Any questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yes, ma'am.
Megan, I just wanted to give a heads up that airfield maintenance does a bang up job. They really do. I saw a couple guys out, and I see one guy all the time that's always out there picking up litter. You guys do a great job.
Thank you. I will be sure to pass that on to airfield maintenance. Usually a lot of times people only hear complaints, so it's really good that I can pass on something positive. Thank you.
Yeah, I always say thank you when I pass them. I'm out there riding my bike all the time, and they really do great. So thank you.
Okay, and there was a question in the chat. Leslie asked, what's the status of public comment on filling in the wetland near Lake Hood Airstrip, or Lake Hood Airstrip, putting in new tie downs, and I think that's on our agenda next. So, so Kathy, maybe I'll look to you. Is that something we should put off, or is that a question to answer now?
Well, maybe we can just dovetail into that if you want to.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe I'll just see if there's any folks who have other questions, and then we'll come back to that one.
It looks like Carolyn Hall has a question. Her hand is up.
Yeah, go ahead, Carolyn.
Yeah, thanks. I'm curious, for people who are interested in signing up for Gov Delivery, can you please put that information in the chat?
I can do that. I don't have copy paste available since I'm on my home computer right now, but I'll type it in. I did send out, every month I send out the monthly update that is posted to our website, and it's also sent out to the community council presidents so they can share it ahead of the meetings. But I will go ahead and type that in for you after everything dies down a little, after I'm done talking anyway.
And if I could jump in, I always
Okay.
put it on the announcements. It's typically at the very end under just notices. But I always have that in the announcements that get produced monthly. So.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Let's see, we're waiting. I don't
To
see
address
any.
the one question that about the tie downs, I don't know if it's already been posted for public comment or not. I'd have to check that out. I don't know if Terry has any information on that, but I will reiterate that anytime we do have, I mean, on our website, we do take comments, whether it's a public comment period for a specific thing or not. If people want to share their thoughts on something, we encourage them to do so via our website. And when we go through and we triage those and we send them to the people that are actually involved in whatever project or topic somebody is talking about. So that way, the people that matter for that specific thing, that comment or complaint or what have you, is in front of the most logical person to address it or to consider it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And then from there, I think we'll move on to, so thank you again for the report, and it'll be posted on the website if it's not already.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on, and we're actually back right on time. So we will move on to our first new business item. So just to remind folks, we have some action items tonight for voting. I'm going to start posting those documents in the chat because I know a couple of them came last minute. But in the meantime, we are going to have just a brief report about relocating the Lake Hood General Aviation or GA parking, the Charlie parking, and the traffic control tower in Turnagain Bog east of the gravel strip. So from there, I will turn it over to Kathy for an update.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Yes, the Lakewood user group met again. We met last, I believe it was November, and then again this March 17th, where FAA did provide via Zoom a PowerPoint presentation on the proposal for the air traffic control tower to be relocated. And they want to relocate it where current Charlie GA tie down parking, plane parking is, which displaces obviously that. There's 32 places currently at the current Charlie parking, and they have not made any decisions, but certainly they are giving every intention of leaning toward developing those tie downs on the east side of the gravel strip, where there's currently Class A Turnagain bog wetlands. I'm sure everybody's familiar with kind of the topography there. You've got wetlands that go from the strip to the Turnagain Community Council, or the Turnagain residential neighborhood. But in the middle of that, there's an upland area of some big, beautiful gathering of trees. And they serve as an incredible noise buffer from the GA facilities and operations that happen out there to the neighborhood. I've literally been out there and I've heard noise being generated by a taxiing plane, and then it bounces back off those trees toward the port versus moving on into it. So they're really a critical buffer for the neighborhood. But unfortunately, that's where they want to put GA parking, right smack dab in the middle of that. So that would eliminate vegetation, plus filling in really important wetlands. So the presentation given by FAA at the March user group meeting indicated that the timeline is for an environmental assessment for, I think it must be probably the joint proposal of relocating the tower, and then also then relocating the Charlie parking. It'll come out sometime in the fall, and that's when there will be a formal public comment period. But certainly Turnagain Community Council needs to engage the West Turnagain neighbors who will be greatly affected if that proposal goes through to relocate the Charlie parking in that area. Another big legal issue that from a Turnagain Community Council standpoint is clear back in 2001, and I won't drag this out much. Give me a call, email me if you want a lot of detail, because I certainly participated in that on behalf of the council back then. But the airport was looking to develop wetlands, them or private developers, and they needed core permit, for that. You have to do mitigation. So they looked to the city and said, hey, city, you own portions of Clatt bog wetlands down in South Anchorage. Would you be willing to sell the wetland credits, not the bog itself, but the wetland credits from Clatt to us And so that we can then tell the Corps we've got some credits. We're protecting Clap Bog, which was already publicly owned, which was kind of a joke. But we're protecting wetlands clear in a whole different part of town. And that was approved. But one caveat that we worked really hard, in fact, I was the one that wrote the language, to get the ordinance that approved that, the municipal ordinance by the assembly, was that certain areas of Turnagain Bog, including all of that area east of the strip, would not be developed under any circumstances until the airport and the municipality do a joint master plan, which has never been done before. And so the assembly, with that condition, passed it, and the airport has over the years used those Clap Bog credits, them or people they have leased out to. And so when I have brought that up, that's really, it was a condition for the airport to do that, the response has been, hey, that was a muni document. We don't have to abide by that. That's not legal from our perspective. Obviously, the next step the council has to do is get some legal direction from the municipality, because there's got to be some accompanying state documents that also included that condition. I don't believe the assembly would have been that negligible to not ensure that this was a two-way street in terms of agreement. And like I said, they already have used those credits. They're not just out there waiting to be used. And so the airport could say, well, we never used them. They have been used. So that's kind of the gist of it. It's going to be a really big deal, and we need to be engaged. And I'll wrap it up there, but certainly the Turnagain Community Council Land Use Committee is going to be, and I see John Isaacs, my co-chair on that committee, has his hand raised. So I will let him jump in. We're going to need to stay on top of this and continue efforts on that way before this fall when a formal EA comes out. So thank you.
And Kathy, I was just going to add that that's one of two items that I think really need our attention to the land use committee. So I think we talk about that at the end, and we can look at scheduling some meetings.
Yeah, definitely. I can, we've got a lot of balls in the air for the land use committee right now, but this is going to, summer's going to be more difficult to get people engaged. And so we're going to have to start talking about steps we want to take and start getting things scheduled now. So thanks, John.
Okay, thanks, Kathy and John. And I know this is something that members, especially who live over right in that area, have brought up for a few months. So I'm glad that we were, there's a lot going on, but I'm glad we're able to follow up. So does anybody else have any questions about that, or I'll see if anybody, and Megan, I see you're unmuting.
Yeah, I was just preparing just in case somebody asked something. I do want to stress, as Ms. Gleason noted, that no final decisions have been made on it. The airport is still looking at things and assessing things. So if anyone does have a comment, even though there's not an official public notice or public comment period in place right now, I can't stress enough that you can always send comments to the airport. We're happy to read them. We're happy to put them in front of the people that matter, that look at those specific projects. So don't be shy. I mean, we have that on our website for a reason. We do want to communicate with the people around us.
Yeah, thank you, Megan. And I see that in the chat. So folks, please copy that over. And also, obviously, if you have other airport comments, looks like that's the good place to put them.
Absolutely.
And Steve Montooth, I see you're off mute. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Megan, is there a any place you can get the aerial view of the control tower site?
I can ask that question. I'm going to go ahead and put my email address in the chat. If you could send me an email, so then when I get to my office tomorrow, I don't forget. I have a lot of really good intentions and a lot of information coming at me in different directions. So sometimes, even though my best laid plans are there, I'll forget to hit the send button or something. So please send me an email on that and I will see what I can drum up for you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Kathy, you had your hand raised as well.
Thanks. And I literally just emailed Tim Coons, who is the manager of the Lake Hood Seaplane Air Base. And I asked him to send me the PowerPoint presentation that FAA gave at the March 17th Lakewood User Group meeting. I haven't looked at it yet, but I mean, I saw it in September. So,
And if he
probably-
doesn't have it, he will definitely know how to get it for you, ma'am.
okay, yeah, well, I just haven't opened my email back. He responded. I saw he responded, but I haven't opened my email. So I'm sure he did, but thanks, Megan, as a backup. And so, Anna, maybe, once I get that to you, you can post it on our website. So it's there. And then certainly my thinking was it would be a good idea for us to have that because John, that's probably something we'd want to take a look at a land use committee meeting. So everybody can kind of get up to speed on and seeing things graphically.
Yeah, thank you. And then just a reminder, if you do want to be involved in this or stay informed, we'll give updates at the council meetings as we have them, but really encourage you to join the land use committee. So if you want to do that, I'll put the Turnigan president email in the chat, and then I'll make sure that you are connected and get on the list. And those don't have standing meetings at this point. We kind of schedule them as needed when there's issues, but it sounds like there's plenty to do. So that'll be a good way to stay involved if you're interested in those issues. And I'll put the email right now. Okay, well, let's move on to our next item, which is a brief presentation. And I believe we have Shayna Kilcoyne from the municipality from Solid Waste Services. And Shayna, I think you're on the phone. So if you can hear me, I think it's *6 to unmute, or I can attempt to unmute you. Oh, sorry. I think I just undid it. Go ahead, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. Not so much a presentation, just an announcement. And I think you have the notice on this already. I'm with Solid Waste Services and just sharing that the curbside composting program is opening on May 2nd. So it will run from May 2nd to October 28th. So if you've seen those pink bins on the street from your neighbors, that's the composting program. And you can put yard waste and food scraps into that bin. Really great for us. It helps keep all of that material out of the landfill and reduces methane. And allows you to do something a little more valuable with your yard waste and food scraps. So that's a program that runs once a week. If you were in the program last year, you probably still have your pink cart, and you should have received an email from me, I believe yesterday, with instructions on how the program will work. The only changes this year is that we are not able to offer finished compost. In years past, you've been able to go to the central transfer station or the landfill and pick up finished compost for free. We're really working to make the program more economical, frankly, so that we don't lose it. So we're sad to not be able to offer that, but we just can't right now. And we are offering community compost, so you can come drop off food scraps at Central Transfer Station on 54th and Old Seward. And I think we've put out that we are going to have that at the landfill, but we've got some challenges there, and I think we're not going to be able to offer food drop-off at the landfill. So that will just be at Central Transfer Station. The caveat here is that Solid Waste Services territory kind of cuts through Turnigan. So maybe you've seen the pink carts and maybe you haven't seen them on your street. So you can go onto our website at muni.org/SWS. And on the top right, you'll see the curbside compost image with a pink cart, and you can click on there. And there's a really good map that will show you whether you are in Solid Waste Services territory, but also you'll be able to know because you either have a blue and a gray cart, which is Solid Waste Services, or you might have green carts, one with a yellow lid, and that's Alaska Waste territory. And Alaska Waste, unfortunately, does not have curbside compost right now. So blue and gray carts means you're solid waste and you're probably eligible for the program. You can also call us at 3463-6250, I believe. and ask if you're a customer of solid waste services. Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Shana. And I also put the, well, I think we sent out the brochure, or it's posted on our website. So it's got a QR code you can use. But we also have it in the chat here. So does anybody have any questions? I don't see any hands at the moment.
Oh, and the 32-gallon cart is $5.25 a month, and the 64, I can't remember, sorry, the bigger cart is $10.50 per month. So especially for yard waste, you really start filling up those larger carts. But yeah, it's really great for the community because it helps extend the life of the landfill. We can get more value out of it by composting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shana. I guess one question, I don't see any hands raised at the moment, but just to clarify, so I live in the Alaska Waste, so not Solid Waste Services area. So unfortunately, I can't get a bin. But it sounds like even if somebody doesn't live in the Solid Waste Services area, is it still okay to drop off food compost at the Central Transfer Station?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
You can drive in and you'll see a sign before you get to the checkout where you can drop off your food scraps. Perfect. Thanks, Anna.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and well, I'm going to continue doing that, so I'm glad that I'm allowed to.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, but again, just, if you live in the area, please consider using that service. It's a great service. The yard waste sounds like a great benefit, especially this time of year in the fall. And just to encourage folks to reach out to Solid Waste Services if you have questions. So I think that's it. Okay, and thanks, Shannon, for joining tonight. So next we have a series of actions. And so a few of them are documents for approval. So I'll just let folks know, if you scroll up in the chat, I posted, four items. One was the brochure for solid waste services. The others are documents to review and that we'll be voting on. But the first thing that we're going to do is we need to take some action to prepare for the capital improvement list for the municipality. So just as a brief overview, every year the Muni puts out a process for community councils to provide input on transportation and drainage and all kinds of projects that we'd like to see in our area. I believe it also includes parks. And so the process that we've used every year is to form a committee, a CIP committee, and then we are supposed to submit those comments to the municipality by the end of May. So for us, because we meet the first week of the month, we try to get those done early May. And then, of course, we have our list from previous years, and there is a benefit to being consistent as a council and ranking the same priorities, which can include projects that are already on the list. We can deprioritize projects that are on the list that we don't feel are a priority for our area, and we can propose new projects. And so the action tonight really is just to propose forming that committee and then looking to have a meeting by the end of April, probably before the last week of April, and then to bring those recommendations back to the council for a vote in May. So we're not taking action tonight. We're not looking at the list tonight. We're really just empowering that committee to meet and do the job that it needs to do. And then, of course, we would vote as a council. And then we could also provide more detailed information about the CIP list. I believe our last year's list is on the website, but it's also important because we use that information to share priorities with our legislators for capital projects. And then, like I said, we've also used it for the transportation improvement project, the TIP list, which is with AMATS, the Transportation Authority for Anchorage. So it's really helpful for us to go through that process of prioritization so that we can share back with our elected officials and with the municipality what our priorities are. So with that, I would be looking for a motion to form a CIP or a capital improvement list committee. And then also if folks want to volunteer, then we can sign up as well, which doesn't need a vote.
And I'll go ahead and move that Turnagain Community Council forms an ad hoc CIP committee for the purpose of meeting and coming up with recommendations for TCC approval at our May meeting on the capital improvement project roads and drainage and park list. For, I guess that I'll stop there because I think I've said too much already.
No, it's totally
I'll
fine.
second that motion.
Okay, so motion by Kathy, second by Jackie. Is there any objection to forming that committee? Okay, not seeing or hearing any. And of course, the next step will be to meet as a committee and come up with things that the council will be voting on in May. So that's the next step. So if anybody's interested in serving on that, it's open to any member. It really is going to be, you know, some reading and then that probably a one meeting to work through the prioritization, which we'll have in April. So if you are interested, you can either email the TCC president, which is still in the chat. I put the Yahoo address there, or you're welcome to put your name in the chat and your email, and then we can start a list that way. And then otherwise, if nothing else, we'll we'll ask the board members to see who's available to serve on that committee. So please, if you are interested, please put it in the chat.
Well, and Anna, I would encourage them to just say now and raise their hand if they're interested as well.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So if anybody is chomping at the bit, please feel free to volunteer. Okay, well, we have a quiet group tonight, but we can, again, just please reach out if you're interested, and then we'll make sure, excuse me, to we can send an email to about the meeting notice if anybody would like to join, just to make that available. And then we'll schedule the meeting, but we'll do that by email and then get it out probably mid-April is what I'm thinking. Okay, so next let's move on to, this is the first of our three comments that we need to approve. And this one is actually technically ratification because it's been submitted. And so this is the airport communications plan. And I'm actually going to pull up that file so I can share the screen. And so Kathy, maybe I'll turn it over to you to give just a really brief overview of kind of what this is for. And then if you want me to share any highlights.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Yeah, well, the first airport communications plan was developed in 2014, and it was a collaborative effort between airport officials and West Anchorage community councils and our state and maybe local. Matt Clayman was on it. I don't remember if he was our assembly rep or acting president at that point. I don't believe he was our state representative yet. Anyway, so it was a collaborative effort where we felt like there just needed to be more communication between community councils and the airport because there was a lot of development happening and sometimes the council didn't know about it. And we just needed to structure something for both sides to commit to things so that we have two-way communication. And so one of the things that we put in that initial plan was that it would be reviewed every 2 years. And so the airport has taken the initiative to generate that 2-year review. And so this is the year then that we are looking at it again. Turnagain Community Council has asked for most of the things in this reiteration of our comment list. We have asked for in the past in one form or another, and somehow it still hasn't made it into the revised, potentially revised 2-year review version. So we respectfully ask the airport if we approve these, or if we ratify these comments, as Anna pointed out, they have already been submitted, to seriously consider them. They're important, especially as the discussion about relocation of the tower and the ramifications of that potentially having a huge development, fill and wetland right up, near our boundaries. That kind of thing is just a drop in the bucket of all the airport things that are coming up that our community council has to deal with. And so, so that's kind of it in a nutshell without going through each one individually, unless there's, if there's any one given comment, because they are numbered, that anybody has questions or comments on, maybe Anna, that would be the best way to do it since there are, 3 pages worth of these comments.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. And I do have it up on the screen. I know it's a lot to digest briefly, but you can also download a copy from the chat. And then also just to say, we do really appreciate that the airport does come to our meetings every month, because that I know is part of that didn't always happen. And so thanks to Megan and Terry and John Johansson, who has been our contact for a long time. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, and that was one of the things the council really felt was a priority. So we asked for it and they were happy to do it, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah. So I'll just see, so if anybody has any questions or would like me to scroll to a different location, I'll just kind of move down. There's multiple comments about getting notice about lease applications, because those certainly, it's not just the airport, but other users at the airport who have leases to run a business in that space. And so those can have impacts as well.
Anna, if I can just interject right
Sure.
here, you just scrolled past it,
Oh.
I think, but it may be in other places, but I'm going to suggest that not only where it says leases that include development and operations that may have significant impacts on residential, yada, 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 that we insert in there traffic, because almost everything at the airport will have an impact. And now that they're going to be looking for a new manager, I want somebody who has a heart for the neighborhood when it comes to traffic. So we might want to be thinking about how to insert that in these comments.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Lauren. That's a good thought. So just for clarification, these have already been sent to the airport before the comment deadline. But I think in that case, especially because we've had so many traffic issues, we could also send a follow-up email just to say that we still encourage that. So I'll see if would you like to make an amendment to the document maybe?
Well, no, I just knowing that it's already gone, I think that's fine, because it's probably covered in there under the umbrella of, having significant impacts on residential, commercial, and other areas. So yeah, I think it's never a bad thing to remind them that airport operations and the employees have an impact on the neighborhood. And, so.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And that's a good reminder too. So one thing that is not on our agenda, but something we're tracking is, well, over the years, we've had multiple issues with traffic, whether it was construction traffic, haul traffic, truck traffic, and we are still continuing to work on the current issue of airport generated traffic on West Northern Lights, which I know has been an issue for many years. So we do we're definitely watching, who's going to be selected at the airport. And we also want to follow up with the municipality about the issues off the airport. But that is a good reminder that the traffic is certainly an ongoing issue. Okay.
And if I could just respond, I think that's excellent, Lauren. And I'm sure that, well, let's see. So is Megan still with us on our meeting? There she is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
Megan, if I could ask, do you know when the airport is going to let us know how they have incorporated our comments, when we might hear from the airport on that? And you're hearing that just we probably should have traffic included in that number 6 comment. So if maybe you could informally just pass that along to the entity at the airport that's reviewing our comments and any other comments that were submitted. And also, let us know when we can get it, when we might get a response to our comments. Sometimes that doesn't really happen. And so it would be great to get feedback, good communication. So back and forth communication.
I have written this down and I will follow up with it. I am not aware of what action has been taken. I do know that people have seen the comments. but I don't know if there's been a formal meeting about anything yet. So I will follow up on that tomorrow. I have written that down. I don't know if I'll have an answer for you tomorrow, ma'am, but I will follow up with you.
Okay, well, thank you, Megan. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
If I could, Megan, I'd be happy sometime at a convenient time for both of us to go through a little bit of history on the relationship of the neighborhood and the airport, and some very cordial relationships, and the airport worked with us, and I just have a good historical perspective that I think it would be good for you to learn about and maybe encourage the managers. And I've talked to John Binder about this, and he certainly is aware and is very supportive of it. So if you'd like, I'd be happy to come on over and chat with you about it.
Absolutely, Mr. Lehman. I would like that a lot. I have personally been trying to read up on the history of the airport in relation to the neighborhood surrounding it, with the city, the relationship with other partner agencies. And the more I hear about it, the more informed I can become, and hopefully be more helpful to you all as you continue to reach out to the airport with comments and concerns. So I do not have your current email, Mr. Lehman. So if you want to put that in the chat, I will make note of it and send you an email.
Okay, thank you. And John Isaacs, you have your hand up.
I do. During one of our conversations, it may have been prior to the land use committee meeting, if I understand, Craig Campbell is now stepping in as the director of the airport. And one of the things we had talked about as a small group was potentially looking at an agenda to sit down with the airport just to kind of talk about a couple of the issues. I do not want to discourage Lauren or any of the neighbors on Northern Lights from talking with the airport. I suspect there might be a couple of things where it might be good to prepare for a meeting at some point in time. So certainly, Lauren, I think it's good, as long as you sort of touch base with some of your other neighbors to go through those traffic issues, but we may wish to consider at some point in the future a sit down with some of the council leadership and Craig, and yourself, if you're available.
So I will tell you right now that Craig Campbell, yes, he is the current airport director. He has been really good about making himself available to hear what issues are of concern to neighborhoods. We have already had at least one meeting that I am personally aware of with the Sand Lake Community Council. So it's definitely something that we can plan. It would be great if ahead of time that we were presented with some type of an agenda or questions that we knew were of mind. It's best if we know that the meeting that is wanted has a specific goal or topic. Otherwise, it can get really out of control fast, and we got really crazy schedules. So I would encourage you as a community council to come together and figure out what the concerns are, or what things that you would really want for Craig Campbell to know and to consider. So then we could have a productive meeting instead of a free-for-all. But yeah, we want to have that communication. I mean, we're probably not always going to come to the same conclusions on everything, but we do want open and honest and transparent conversations, and provide information that we can, that's ours to share, and to also make sure that we know what the concerns of the community are.
Okay, thanks, Megan. I think, Anna, you and the board should perhaps think about what we might want to schedule and put together as an agenda. So I'm going to lower my hand now.
Thank you, Mr. Isaacs. I really appreciate you piping in.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll let Kathy jump in as well. But yeah, we certainly at least on the truck traffic issue, we've been working to get our information together, and yeah, certainly our intent would be to be clear and transparent about what we'd like to talk about. And sorry if you can hear my cat. And to be organized. Yeah, that's my cat. She's on the floor. But yeah, I think we certainly would respect your guys' time and make sure that we're organized. And Kathy, I don't know if you want to add anything.
First of all, Anna, is your cat hungry? Kind of sounds hungry.
Oh, she's well fed. It's fine.
I'm just guessing. Well, thank you, Megan, and thank you, John. And, honestly, there is a laundry list of things that really would be appropriate to talk to this interim director, Craig Campbell, about with our council. So we might want to just schedule a sleepover because it might take that, but I'm saying that in jest. Yeah, and popcorn. Yeah, definitely popcorn. And so we may have to have more than one because we certainly wouldn't want to have an hour, an 8-hour meeting, but there are numerous things that
I
really
would
are
suggest-
anxious to talk about. So just, heads up, and John, I think you should be part of that. We could have a little Zoom meeting or meet at the FCC, the board, and you and come up with that list to make sure we're all thinking of our highest priorities, and then look at a second meeting perhaps to, continue the dialogue.
And I'm not going to promise any. I'm not going to promise up front when and what time frame that Craig Campbell has. I would suggest that the meetings, they be topic specific and prioritized so they can be looked at and scheduled appropriately. Even though he's very new, his schedule is super busy. So I would really encourage you guys as a community council to prioritize your topics and to request meetings that are topic specific.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's heard for sure. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back actually because we are in the middle of, trying to approve these comments. But I think this really illustrates how important it is to have open communication with the airport. So again, appreciate the ability to do that. So we'll be following up. But in the meantime, I think we had a motion and a second already for approval, or maybe we didn't get that far. I don't think we did get that far. Okay, okay, so then I'm looking for a motion and second for approval of, or I'm sorry, ratification of these comments that have been submitted.
Move to approve, John Isaacs.
I'll second. This
Okay.
is Jackie.
So moved by John Isaacs, second by Jackie Armstrong. Is there any objection, or I guess we could take a vote if that's appropriate. So I'll ask, is all in favor of approving these comments or ratifying, please raise your hand. And if you have more than one person in the room, you can use your video or just use the raise hand and put in the chat maybe ×2. So we make sure we get an accurate count. And then I know, again, if you're a new person, but you live or own property, you're welcome to vote. And if you are a guest just attending, then please don't vote. Unless you also live in the area.
Anna,
And,
could you take down the comments so we can all see each other?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sure.
Yeah,
Thanks.
there we go. Okay, so I see 7 in favor, and then I'm number 8.
Oh, and you
And
can
then-
put me down as well.
Okay, Jackie's number 9. And is there anybody else who would like to vote? Okay, I don't see any indication in the chat. So so we'll say that was 9 approved. And so is anybody opposed, or would you like to vote? So please put your hand down if you already voted. Okay, and then last check, just seeing if anybody who is on the phone or not on video would like to vote. I don't see any in the chat. Okay, so with that, I think we can consider that approved. So the vote was 9-0. And thank you. Is that, like we said, those are already submitted, but they're on the website, so they're available for folks who want to see them. The next 2 items are actually things that have not been submitted yet and are drafts. So I'm going to pull up the first one on the screen, and it's also in the chat. And this is the Heritage Land Bank 2022 work plan draft comments. And let me get it on the screen. And then again, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy to just give a brief kind of overview and context.
Okay, well, for those of you who have been involved with community council for a while, you know that we review the annual work plan, and typically then there's an accompanying 5-year management plan we review every year. We have for many, many years. And because there are Heritage Land Bank parcels within our boundaries, they're all west of the north-south runway along the coastal trail. And probably a lot of you are familiar with it. Clitheroe Center, Salvation Army Clitheroe Center is out in that area. The old composting facility was out there. And so it's important land and land use documents. So we definitely want to submit comments every year. Because there's a new administration, they kind of completely revamped not only some of the content, but actually the formatting. So it took me a little while to figure out how to compare apples and oranges. So I'll do my best to kind of summarize, and then I'll turn it into a more formal comment letter. Comments are due tomorrow. But this was kind of a format that was probably the easiest for us to deal with at this evening's meeting. So I broke down our comments into 2 categories, and let me find my comments. The first category is site specific, relevant to the site specific parcels that are within our boundaries. And like I said, they're all west of the airport, on the other side of the north-south runway. So under one of the sections, under municipal entitlement lands, clear back in 1986, the state, and if you want to scroll back up to the top, because then you can see the list of parcels. The state transferred a land to the city, and don't remember why they did it. I'd have to refresh my memory on that, but they did a lot of land. And so that's how the Heritage Land Bank entity, part of the municipality, was formed, to take in all that land and decide what to do with it. And over time, of course, they've sold some of it, they've leased some of it, they managed some of it. And the whole goal back then was to serve the best interests of the people of Anchorage, the public, in the long term. If we need a site for a new school, then we look at Heritage Land Bank land, because that's already our land. If we want another park, we look at Heritage Land Bank land, etc. So it was a really important back then. And if you look at the parcels that are still in the HLB that we've received from the state, that we'd like to see become transferred to the Parks Department. We've asked this for many, many years, because it's being used as park now, and wonderful open space in West Anchorage. And so that's kind of this is just verbatim. I'll take what we said from last year's letter and put it again this year's, that we'd like to see this municipal entitlement land go ahead and go to the Parks Department formally, because it's all being used as parkland now. And then there's that Clop snow disposal site, which is also being used by the city. And it really shouldn't be in the Heritage Land Bank. Heritage Land Bank is just kind of like a holding bank, holding status, if there's no public need for it at this time. The snow dump's been used by the public for a long time, by the municipality. So it's kind of a formality that we ask for this every year. So the next one is, it was new to this plan. And it reflects, I had a really good talk with Shelley Roten, who is the land management officer at HLB now. They don't have a director anymore. Adam Trombley in the community planning or community development is now kind of the equivalent of an HLB director. So this, came from this current administration about potentially dealing with those parcels there west of the airport, specifically the one where the Clitheroe Center is at, because that Clitheroe Center has been out there for decades. But you have to use airport road, the road on airport land, to access the municipality land beyond the airport boundaries. And so the administration really wants to see that center relocated, but just was told yesterday that actually the Bronson administration is also actually wants to give the Cliff Center over $2 million to rehab that facility. So a little bit of conflicting language there. So the bottom line is that draft language, it's very confusing. It's under potential acquisitions, but in fact, they were looking to potentially dispose of that land. And so one of my takes, of course, is that it's vague. The intent is unclear. It needs amended. And so everything in blue with the little arrow on the left-hand side is would be action items that we're asking for, that we actually definitely specifically say that we do not want to see them to trade or dispose of in any way any airport land, so that they maybe would get municipal land somewhere else that the airport would provide. I mean, that would just be a disaster, and we'll get more on that land and those parcels here in a bit. So that's the essence of that second one. The third one is a new one. It's got with the title trespass and encroachment issues. They do have problems sometimes. It's a lot of public land. They only have so many people to keep an eye on it. And sometimes people do encroach and use that land illegally. Well, we've got the Tesoro-Nikiski pipeline easement again on those parcels west of the airport, and they have an easement. Of course, they need access to do maintenance and keep an eye on that pipeline and on using that easement as access. But Shelley explained to me yesterday, the reason why this one is on there is that occasionally they have gone beyond the use of the easement and dumped some gravel because they needed a bigger turnaround or this or that. So it's again, this is kind of a vague proposal in their plan. So I just put that we would, and she liked this. I mean, I ran this past her. She liked that we just request the HLB keep us informed that they engage us if they are looking at any additional pipeline easements in that natural space, park use, parkland like land over on the west side. So the next one is.
And Kathy, can we just
yes.
have like a very brief summary of the rest? Because I don't want to take too much time on this item. if we
Yeah,
can.
and this one, this one is probably the most important, and then the other ones are more policy procedure that identified, and if anybody's got any feedback quick, then that would be good because they are due tomorrow. But again, all these parcels west of the airport, or three of them, can you scroll back up a tad, Anna? Thank you. Because Alaska Takes a Stand, which is an organization, are listed in a table under land use plan lease for those parcels out there. I talked to Shelley about this, and she said, well, that entity would kind of be an umbrella group, and there's no leases of mind. And I said, well, good, because we certainly weren't aware of any of this. And she said, well, they're looking at maybe organic composting facility, maybe some farming out there with hemp, flowers to start with, greenhouses. They're really looking at that area as an agricultural venture. Some would be nonprofit, some would be for-profit. And of course, I pointed out to her, she's new at HLB, that there are some pretty important planning documents that have been around for quite a while that actually identify all of that land out there where the coastal trail runs through and that wooded area.
So Kathy, sorry to interrupt, just if you could just summarize kind of like, because it sounds like this is really a early stage. So what is the TCC's comment on this piece?
So if you look at the blue, that's what I would specifically request, and the following that they actually have in a different section of that parcel that is to be considered for transfer to parks, for coastal trail buffering and natural open space preservation. And apparently Shelley didn't tell this entity, Alaskans Take a Stand, that was the case, and that all these other plans show it as park or natural open space. And so we are, and also asking that HLB include us in any other discussions about potential actions for that plan. So that's basically it, Anna. Thank you.
And then it sounds like this last page is more about kind of the processes they go through. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. So these are, as Kathy said, these are due tomorrow. This is an annual process. So we're looking for a motion and a second for approval of these comments that would be sent on behalf of the council.
I will make a motion to approve the comments.
And I will second
regarding
John
the
Isaacs.
heritage.
Oh, okay. I heard a motion from Jackie Armstrong to approve the comments on the 2022 Heritage Land Bank Work Program, and second from John Isaacs. So again, if we could use the vote function, I'll stop sharing. Actually, I'm sorry. I'll ask if there's any amendments or changes to the comments, I guess before we move to a vote. Okay, not hearing any, so I'll go ahead and stop sharing. So again, if you could use your raised hand function to vote yes for approval of these comments. And then we'll run through the no votes. And again, if you are on the phone, please speak up, or if you need to have, if you have two people voting.
And you can put me on the yes votes.
Okay, so it looks like we have, it looks like we have 13 plus, oh wait, I'm sorry. 11 plus Jackie is 12.
Dan, are you voting?
I am, I have my hand up. Oh, and Steve Montooth as well. So I think we have 13.
And Dan, husband Dan, are you voting? Okay, would you put your hand up, please? You know he's doing other things as well.
That's okay. So I think if we have Dan plus Jackie, that would be 14.
That's what I've got as well.
Okay. So that's 14 in favor, and then I suspect there will not be anybody. If anybody would like to vote no, please go ahead and raise your hand, or speak up verbally, or put it in the chat.
I'm just going to ask, because I haven't had a chance. I've been reading through them as we've been in the meeting. Who developed these? Was that done by like a subcommittee or several people? Or Kathy, did you do it?
I take on the responsibility of doing it every year. I have for many years. You know,
okay,
with the permission
well,
of the board. I mean, I did it on behalf of the board.
Yeah, I just want to protect the opportunity for the Salvation Army to continue to be able to function where it is. It's way out at the end of the trail, and that's one of the things that I think is not creating a problem, and I hope the municipality is able to route some of the funds so they can improve those facilities, at least make them a little bit more livable. And you know, and I don't think there's anything in your comments that would preclude that. I tried to read through really quickly what the comments are. So anyway, I voted for it, and I just wanted to say I'd like to look at them a little bit more closely, maybe later.
Well, and if I could jump in, Anna, real quick. Thank you, Lauren, for bringing that up. TCC has been supportive of the Cliffs Row Center out there for decades. And so this wouldn't, but with the permission of the body, I could certainly put something more definitive in our comments with regard to TCC has been a long supporter of the Cliffs Row Center at this location, if that's okay with the body.
Yeah, I think that's fine with me. And I guess if anybody has issues, please unmute and speak up. But yeah, if you could just add a comment. And again, you know, the purpose of this is not to take a position or anything on that facility, because this is a separate process, but it is relevant and it's more on their land right now. So I think it's appropriate to mention our historical support for that that project or that facility. Okay. Well, with that, we have just one more thing to approve, and so I'm going to pull it up on the screen. And then for this one, it's again in the chat as well. And sorry for the short notice getting these getting these things out. It's always hard with these comment deadlines. So this one is actually from the Land Use Committee who met last week, and we'll just give a super brief report later on that. But this is comments on the municipality, the planning department's, excuse me, proposed changes to Title 21, which is our zoning code, and it's specifically about parking requirements in residential areas and some of their changes related to site access. So with that, I'll turn it over to John Isaacs, who is the co-chair of the Land Use Committee and helped draft this, or did draft this.
So this is kind of a series of changes to Title 21 that the municipality is using to try to increase housing density and be able to provide more affordable housing in the municipality. And it goes towards recommendations for parking spaces and driveway site access, and reducing some of those requirements in exchange for getting other amenities out of them, such as walkways, more bike storage, encouraging ride share, encouraging use of public transit, and potentially pricing rentals so that people who don't have cars would pay less. They're really focusing on about 3 areas, none of which are within the TCC boundaries. It's traditional urban neighborhoods, edge urban neighborhoods, and transit supportive development quarters. The closest one is in Spenard, adjacent to us. So we're not directly affected, but sort of that said, these changes could start applying to other parts in the municipality. And while we agree with the objectives of this, we have some concerns that this is really going to create additional on-street parking problems, of which we have a lot in Anchorage and many of our neighborhoods, with regard to sort of safety, pedestrian safety, vehicle safety, and snow removal. It also makes some of these things uses by right or administrative, which really reduces the ability for the public and community council review and input on new developments. And it places a lot more burden on residents in going to enforcement for taking care of parking problems where there is not adequate on-site parking and it spills into the streets. When we asked them about it, they also said, well, at some point in time, we're also going to make some changes to Title 21 and Title 9 to take care of enforcement and deal with some of these spillover problems. But right now, we just want to get it into the Title 21. So we sort of have 4 points where we kind of object to some of the things that this is going to create in terms of the additional on-street parking problems, the ability for neighborhoods and community councils to participate in reviews, more burden on enforcement, and deferring fixes down the road. And we essentially recommend that, number one, these changes to proposed changes to 21 be delayed to really start assessing the need for the companion Title 21 and Title 9, which is where enforcement is, and to work with the community councils on language which potentially makes it easier for community councils and residents to participate in some of these decisions. You know, the second point on the last page is if these are going to be approved, they really need to get underway with those companion changes in Title 21, Title 9 right now, so they're not increasing unresolved on-street parking. And the third is to suggest that maybe they pick some areas to try this out and see how this works before making it applied to a larger area. So that's kind of a summary of what's in the comments, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Okay,
there's going to be a planning commission meeting on this Monday night at 11, and others are welcome to take a look at this and submit comments or listen into that meeting.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Sorry, and it goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing on the 11th.
Thanks. Yeah, so so this is another one where we were working to the deadline, but we did hear a presentation on the general intent of this a few months ago. So they've been moving along with the draft and making some updates. And then I see from Emily, there was a comment, is the top bullet supposed to say without regard to safety versus with regard to safety?
And see which bullet is that? Which page? Top bullet?
I think she's talking about this one.
Yes.
So it's this with, if with should be without.
Yes, thank you. Good catch.
Okay. And we'll just, we, I guess we should have a motion and second for approval, but I think something like that, if you see any typos or anything, that's not.
It actually works either way, but I'm fine making it without.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually, I'm gonna ask for a motion and a second, just because that way we can have any discussion under a discussion portion before we vote. So could I have a motion and a second?
I'll move that the Turnagain Community Council approves the Land Use Committee recommendations with regard to the Title 21 proposed amendments with regard to parking and reduced driveway and site access requirements.
This is Pat. Go ahead. I think John seconded.
Actually, no, it was somebody else.
I think it was Sandy.
It was Sandy. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with Sandy. So moved by Kathy and seconded by Sandy Rabinowitz. Okay, so then is there any other discussion, questions? And I'll scroll back up to see, or I guess we're already on kind of the 4 key points are here on page 1, and then the additional details under that.
I was just going to ask if you've really brought Craig Lyon into it and Tom Davis. And I see up here that Tom has participated in it, but these are both very rational people. John, and some of these concerns I would think wouldn't fall on deaf ears with them at any rate, but maybe it doesn't hurt to, I guess, to raise them and have the discussion, let them know it's important.
Yeah, surprisingly, we've had a number of discussions with Tom, including at our land use committee meeting. And he acknowledged that, this is going to create some issues which have to be fixed by the changes in Title 21 and Title 9. We did send them some questions probably back in the end of the last year, and we got some answers back from them in February. And they only partially and somewhat satisfactorily answered our questions. So these are really kind of still the unresolved issues. And again, it just, it's one of the big questions is it just seems like there are already so many areas that particularly during the winter have safety issues with on-street parking that's been created by inadequate on-site parking with lack of enforcement that, to do more of this, is potentially challenging. So, I think, if they are going to do this, they really do need to make some changes at the same time in other parts of Title 21 and Title 9. And personally speaking, I think it'd be nice to pick one area to see how this works as compared to just opening it wide for the city.
Yeah, okay. It's my opinion that there are some areas where municipal requirements make for too much parking, and there's an expense to that. And then there are other areas like you're talking about where it may create a problem. And so indeed, one size doesn't fit everything. And, that probably makes some sense, because I certainly don't want to create new problems or more problems in areas where we have very tight roadways, and it's tough to park and remove snow and get traffic through.
And I think if it can be intelligently applied, there's some potential there. But if they make it kind of a broad use by right without the ability to look at it on a case by case situation, then you have some issues.
Yeah.
Okay, I see Dan has his hand up. Did you want to comment?
Well, I just wanted to say that, I agree with what John just said about case by case. It's not one size fits all for this type of situation, because like what happened in our cul-de-sac this winter is they piled the snow up and there was no place hardly to go. We had one lane around the snow pile. So it's, you got to look at it on a holistically, but you got to do it on a case by case basis each time you make a change to when you put in a housing or anything like that.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. And then Kevin, you have your hand up as well.
Yes, sorry for being kind of inactive for a little bit there. I've got two little kids I'm putting to bed. But I think the case by case basis is really important to stress in this as well. One of my concerns is that a lot of the economic development plans that are getting thrown around a citywide focus on activating the downtown core and increasing density down in those neighborhoods. And so I think these regulatory changes that'll allow more housing density and less required parking are really necessary for those plans. Obviously, that doesn't work for everywhere though. And I would hate for concerns that are specific to like my neighborhood to be applied to other places where they don't necessarily make sense. And I think those, what other people have said previously about adjusting rules and regulations in different places makes a lot of sense that we don't, I think it's important to acknowledge the heterogeneity between neighborhoods.
So, and I would suggest that maybe we add something to the conclusion, the last one, either as an area to see how it works and also allow for application on a case by case basis. We can figure out some language to add, but I think that's a good addition to put in our comments.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. And Kevin, if that sounds good.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm chasing people back into bed. So sorry for changing rooms and backgrounds. I think acknowledging and stressing the case by case basis, but then also identifying that need for density and growth too, right? That we see sort of the need as well as having some concerns too, I think is really valuable in this proposal.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. And I would recommend that as well. Just recognizing that that sometimes too many rules or rules that don't work very well can hamper development. So we are certainly wanting to balance those issues as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, maybe we can consider those kind of conceptual amendments, because I know John is going to be finalizing this draft based on what we talked about. So with that, and just understanding those additional comments about making sure that it is that we reflect that it's a case by case basis, and needing to balance the ability to build more, but not creating these bad impacts in neighborhoods. Then we would be looking here. I'll turn off the screen. Then we're looking for a vote in favor, and then we'll do opposed. So if you go ahead and raise your hand, and feel free to use video or raise hand. And Emily, I see there's two folks raising hands now for you.
Two hands.
Okay. So we've got 13.
And please add me in. Thank you.
Okay. So that would be, let's see, so we got 14. I think we have 15 then. I'm sorry, we might have 14, I think, or no, I think we had 15 with Kevin. Okay, so go ahead and turn those off, and then just see if anybody is opposed. Please raise your hand or speak up or go off mute. Okay. So I think, so that was 15 yes. And Kathy, did you have your hand to oppose or? Oh, okay.
Sorry, slow in response.
That's okay. So I think those comments were approved 15-0. So John will make the changes that were discussed, and then we'll get those off to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then again, their meeting is on Monday, and folks can show up to testify or send written comments. And I don't know if they have phone testimony that you can sign up, but you can check, because usually they'll let you sign up the day before. So with that, that concludes our action items. And so we just have a couple of old business items that will be very brief, especially the second one. So the first one is proposed disposal of muni parcels along West Northern Lights at Turnagain Street. So since our last meeting on, well, it was last regular meeting on the 3rd. We held our special meeting on Monday, the 7th, and got information from Adam Trombley at the Muni. And then the council took a position at that meeting to ask for postponement of the assembly action on that item until October. So again, this is authorization to enter into negotiations of sale of the properties, basically the green space across from Rustic Goat along Northern Lights. And so the meeting was supposed to be March 15th. It got postponed to the assembly meeting on the 22nd. I testified to our recommendation. There was a lot of discussion. They did not go for an October postponement, but they did, the assembly did postpone action on the item until June. So June 7th, I believe, is their first meeting in June. And with the understanding that Turnagain Community Council would hold some form of community meeting to discuss that issue. And so so the board is still working on that. And essentially what we're proposing is to not necessarily hold a business meeting about it, but I would like a chance to hold basically a community workshop and maybe thinking broadly beyond just that parcel, because there's not going to be a lot of information about what could happen there between now and June. So, you know, they can't enter into negotiations. There is a potential buyer, JJ Brooks, but he is not, there's nothing official there. There's just been discussion, and because he owns the Rustic Goat property across the street. And so really there's not going to be more information about, you know, what could or couldn't be developed there, what's feasible, what's not. So really what we'd like to discuss as a council is really more what priorities do we have for that area. So I know a lot of folks want to see it remain as parkland. So it's not dedicated, but it would need to be dedicated in order to be protected. Other folks have spoken about the need for housing and wanting to see that there. And so anyway, and so a lot of the issues have really been around lack of process, lack of notice, and just unclear what can happen there. And so that's what we're proposing. So we don't have a specific update beyond that at this point, but we're hoping to organize something probably mid-May, and then we'll have more information at our May meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
So we talked a little bit about this land use committee meeting, and I think, you know, we don't have a lot of time, and there's probably a couple steps to consider. One is we need to do some homework. Kathy's already done some of that by finding some of the documents that have talked about this as park. We need to look at what we can find in the way of plats and what it shows in the way of access in that alley. And, you know, I think one of the big questions is if they put any sort of residential or commercial development in there, where is it going to go in terms of access? You know, that's a really potential mess. And then I think kind of from what I heard from the assembly, even Austin and Cameron were kind of supportive of some aspect of residential development there. So kind of saying we don't want to go away is probably not going to work. You know, if we do a multi-step process where we do some homework among ourselves, maybe have a workshop, I think in April, bringing in some of the neighbors and talking over some of the constraints and issues and concerns, then we can potentially pull in JJ and or Adam and Josh, I think from Parks, Kathy had recommended, and ask them some questions. And then we could potentially in May with a community-wide workshop, pull something together with some recommendations. You know, my personal hunch is it's going to be some sort of mix of the parking lot that's there going to the Rustic Goat, finding some way to shoe and horn in some residential if we can find some decent access for it, but then preserving that east end for some of the park connections that exist. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, thanks, John. So I think, yeah, I think the gist of the updates is that, you know, after the flurry of activity in late March, we were letting it sit for a little bit and focus on other things, but that we need to figure out what our next steps are. So that's what we're going to be working on and seeing what we can get. And in the meantime, just so folks know, on our website, there's a whole bunch of materials. So Adam provided a bunch from the meeting, like historical aerial photos. I think he included the plat, maybe the original plat in there as well. So anyway, there's a zip file with a whole bunch of information. And if you have trouble accessing it, then just contact me and I'll figure out another way to get you the files. There's a lot. But just to say that that's kind of our starting point from there. And then we can also follow up with the planning department to ask for more information. So there's no action there right now, just we wanted to provide an update since a lot has happened since our last meeting. And then, oh, just checking if there's any questions on that. Oh, go ahead, Emily.
Raising my hand is faster than finding the raise hand function. Just a question again on process, and happy to help out with any kind of subcommittee that is working on that. Just wanted to offer, I've been following this issue. My husband here and I live right across the street from this and have many of the concerns that you guys have expressed, and it feeds right into the conversation we were just having about parking and access and what happens on narrow streets.
And then just say, how about
And oh yeah, and then he's my husband's also got a lot of ideas. Brian here has got a lot of ideas as well about contacting neighbors and making sure, because so many people in the neighborhood had no idea this was happening until the newspaper story showed up. And particularly because the area is surrounded by multi-unit housing. We live in multi-unit housing. There's a lot of people that are not here at the community council meeting tonight. I'll just say that.
Anyway, you can send out mailers. And
okay.
Can you ask that question?
So yeah, and my husband said, can we send out mailers? Like what are our options for contacting the rest of the larger community?
I mean, I'd say we have anything open to us that is free or electronic or or that somebody wants to donate. We just don't have the funds to do a mailer ourselves.
Anna, can I jump in?
Sure.
But we do have community council, the Federation of Community Council budgets money for mailings, for TCC mailings. We haven't had one in ages. And so to have FCC fund that would not be a problem. If we want to do a snail mail postal, I can guarantee you that would be approved.
Okay, yeah, so I think it's okay. So yeah, we maybe do have that resource, and so there's just, we need to figure out kind of what our next steps are. But we can definitely keep you in the loop, Emily, and anybody else who's interested.
If I might jump in, I think the land use committee, I mean, this is, within our bailiwick, so I would see the land use committee taking the lead on this. Like John said, we did discuss it briefly at our meeting, the last meeting that we had. So it makes sense, but we want to definitely engage you, Anna, as president. Well, you're part of the committee meeting of the committee, but you weren't at that meeting, and kind of, just have a dialogue about what our next step should be. So any ideas you have, especially with outreach, just to get everybody more aware of it. And then if we set a date for a workshop, like Anna said, or I know, Steve, you've mentioned an on-site meeting. I think Anna, you did too, once the snow melts, I think would be really helpful for those who, could get a better feel once the snow's gone of, the topography and footpaths and all of that, kind of the scale of what's out there. And so, yeah, anybody can join in and help out with that. But I see the land use committee kind of taking the lead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. So, somebody else want to say something?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think it's really critical. There's so many different uses for that property. There's so many different people that want this. I think this is happening a little too fast, and with the assembly, they just want to get to it so quick. I think we're going to have to move pretty fast with it. So if anything I can do to be on top of this and be really helpful, I'm certainly available. And there's some other folks in the community who, especially who did some testimony, if you want to call it, at the last assembly meeting. They're maybe a little extreme, but they would like to jump all over this, and might be real helpful for doing any kind of corrallings of opinions and folks. Yeah, and it would be kind of fun to have a little party on there on the park, the park over there. But I think we're going to have to be a little more conservative about how that might happen.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And Kevin, you have your hand raised as well.
Yeah, I think I accidentally messaged just you, but I'd be happy to be involved in any committee or anything that has to do with that issue as well. I live like across the street from it.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of interest. So, so we will, John and Kathy and I will talk as soon as we can and see if we can put a game plan together. Okay, yeah, and and then really, like we said, the next official kind of action that would happen or when it comes back up is June 7th when the assembly meets again. So, so that's the update. And then the last update, or actually there's two, but one is just really briefly, the municipality did finish, or the assembly finished the reapportionment process. So that sets the assembly districts for the next 10 years until the next census happens. And then the other action they took was to formally, I guess, put into place the 12th member. So the second member in the downtown, or now it's the North District, they renamed, we're still West, but they renamed a few of the districts. And so there's going to be a special election just for District 1, that North District on, I believe it was June 21st. So that's not something that affects us as residents, but just FYI. And then that person would take their seat in the summer. And then I'm just going to direct folks in the chat. There's the reapportion anc.org is the reapportionment website that they were posting all the drafts and how you'd submit comments. And so that's where you can find the final maps. And I believe that our council area is still entirely in District 3. And that was partly because we testified that we wanted to remain that way, because there were some proposals to take a northern portion of the district or of our council area, put it with District 1. So that's the update there. And again, I'll just.
Anna, can I jump in and just say, technically, it does not include all of TCC boundaries. If you look at our TCC boundary, it splits in half, Westchester Lagoon with current downtown district, now North District. And if you look at the reapportionment map, which I did include as well in the announcements I put together. So, and I'll post those on the website tomorrow. But you could go online and look at the map as well. But it just carves down on and follows the southern boundary of the lagoon. So technically we lost a little bit, but I think we're pretty happy with the way it turned out.
Sounds like we lost water maybe more than
we lost
houses
water.
With voters. Okay, yeah. So we have all the same voters, but we see that they took a little bit of our territory. So, okay, but yeah, so those are done for the time being. And so again, that's separate from the state redistricting, which is its own process and is still ongoing. So I think that's also why they say reapportionment. Okay, so that's all of our updates. The last thing was just to note the land use committee, which again, we've basically talked about all of the business issues that they have been dealing with over the last month or so. But there was a meeting on Wednesday, March 30th. We already discussed those items. And given everything that's going on, it sounds like we are likely to have more regular meetings of that committee, than we have in the past. So, so Kathy, maybe if you want to add anything. Oh, and Kathy, sorry, you're on mute again.
I apologize. Did see a notice that on April 30th, they have put a new deadline in amending, adding another item to the 2019 to 2022 tip list, because it has to be added to the current list. We're going to be commenting on we passed comments to submit for the new one, but they are adding Alaska cold storage, cargo and cold storage, or whatever it's called, the big, huge development that's proposed out at the airport in Postmark Bog. They technically had to add it in the current tip list because it's getting federal funding, and there's some kind of requirement to have in your tip list projects that's federally funded if it's within the AMATS area boundaries, even though there's no road, public road to it or anything like that. It's access by the airport. So that's FYI. So there's comments are due for that on that amendment to add by April 30th. I don't see us potentially doing anything with that, but Just giving you a heads up that obviously that project has moved forward. The lease got signed last year with the airport. Now they've received federal funding, so now it's officially in an AMATS document. I had no idea federal funding for myself. I had no idea federal funding was gonna be part of that development. But with all this federal funding coming down, corporations are looking to get their hands in the pie, and it's happening. So just FYI. Thanks, Anna.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. And again, if you're interested in joining that committee, you could reach out to the TCC president at yahoo.com. And then I made a mental note for Steve Montooth, Kevin Barry, and Emily Neenan would like to be involved. So we'll get you added to the list and we'll follow up. And so I think there is no other business on the agenda. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
So
a
moved.
motion to adjourn.
Okay, we'll say that was Jackie and then seconded by John.
Yep.
Any objection to adjournment? Great. Okay, well, we will call that meeting concluded. And just a reminder, our next regular meeting is Thursday, May 5th. Thanks for sticking with us with the Zoom challenges. I will follow up again for the next month.
Thank you.
And yeah, just a reminder too that we'll start at 6:30 for real next time.
Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Bye.